The respiratory system consists of multiple organs: the nose, the nasal cavity, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchial tree, the lungs, and the pleura. In this video, we will take a closer look at each organ as well as their function in the respiratory system. We will start with the nose. The nose functions to warm, cleanse, and humidify air, detects odors, amplifies the voice, and provides protection. Starting at the outermost aspect of the nose is the nares or nostrils. These are the openings to the nose, formed by hyaline cartilage and nasal bone. Moving further into the nose, we have the nasal cavity. It is divided by the nasal septum. Within the nasal cavity are the nasal conchae. These are identified as the superior nasal conchae, middle nasal conchae, and inferior nasal conchae. The nasal conchae are folds of tissue containing blood vessels which warm incoming air and mucus, which moistens the air. Separating the nasal conchae are the nasal meatus. Similar to the conchae, there is the superior meatus, middle meatus, and inferior meatus. Traveling through the nasal cavity, we have now arrived at the pharynx. The pharynx functions in carrying air between the nasal cavity and larynx. Within the pharynx is the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx, and tonsils. The nasopharynx is a passageway for air and is lined with ciliated pseudostratified squamous epithelium. The oropharynx is thicker and can handle abrasion, which enables it to be a passageway for air and food. It is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. The laryngopharynx is also a passageway for air and food and is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. The tonsils within the pharynx are the pharyngeal tonsil, palatine tonsil, and lingual tonsil. The tonsils aid in immunity to provide protection. After the journey through the pharynx, we find ourselves at the larynx, which is also known as the voice box. The larynx is lined with ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Its primary role is to carry air between the pharynx and trachea. However, it also provides sound protection and prevents food from entering into the trachea. The larynx consists of the glottis, which is the airway around the larynx, vestibular folds, which are the muscles that protect the airway by preventing food from entering into the trachea, vocal cords, which are the muscles that protect the airway, which are the muscles that produce sound. The epiglottis, which is found in the uppermost portion of the larynx, is made of elastic cartilage and prevents food from entering into the glottis. This is done by directing the movement of air into the glottis and directing ingested material into the esophagus. The thyroid cartilage, resembling also known as the Adam's apple and resembling a shield, is located in the mid portion of the larynx, hyaline cartilage, and the surrounding vocal cords. And last but not least, the cricoid cartilage in the bottom portion of the larynx, which contains hyaline cartilage and connects the larynx to the trachea. The trachea is a passageway for air lined with pseudostratified columnar epithelium. It is a rigid tube supported by C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage, also known as the windpipe. This connects the larynx to the bronchial tree. The end of the trachea splits into two to become the right and left main bronchi. The right and left main bronchi are a part of a larger structure called the bronchial tree. The bronchial tree is a network of branched air tubes that carry air into and out of the deep tissues to the lungs. The bronchial tree is lined with pseudostratified columnar epithelium and composed of hyaline cartilage at the start, and becomes lined with stratified cuboidal and composed of smooth muscle as the branches get smaller. The bronchial tree consists of main or primary bronchi, lobar or secondary bronchi, segmental or tertiary bronchi, bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, and respiratory bronchioles. The two main bronchi, as previously mentioned, are the right and left main bronchi, going to each lung respectively. They are the largest branches that carry air into and out of the lungs. The main bronchi split within the lung to form the lobar bronchi, which go into each lobe of the lung. There are 3 right lobar bronchi, superior, middle, and inferior, and 2 left lobar bronchi, superior and inferior. The lobar bronchi then branch off into several branches called the segmental bronchi. Traveling down the segmental bronchi are the bronchioles. This is the point of transition of cartilage to smooth muscle and pseudostratified epithelium to ciliated cuboidal. From the bronchioles, we reach the terminal bronchioles, which are the last branches to act solely as the air passageway, containing smooth muscle and cilia, but no goblet cells. The terminal bronchioles then become the respiratory bronchioles, where there is a loss of smooth muscle and cilia. Following the respiratory bronchioles is the alveolar ducts and alveoli. Alveoli, though small, are very important to respiration. There are millions of alveoli in each lung. They are the main site of gas exchange in the lungs. There are 3 types of cells present in alveoli. Squamous or type 1, which form the simple squamous epithelium and form the respiratory membrane and endothelium of the blood capillaries, which are crucial for gas exchange. The great or type 2 alveolar cells, which produce surfactant, which is a lipoprotein that prevents alveoli from sticking to themselves and helps it re-expand during inhalation. The surfactant is blue on this drawing. And the final type of cell is the alveolar macrophage, which is a white blood cell that helps to clean dust and bacteria from the alveoli. We are nearing the end of our respiratory system guided tour. The final stops are the lungs and the pleura. The lungs are paired organs surrounded by the pleural membrane. As just discussed, the lungs are home for the branches of the bronchial tree. As also discussed, the right lung has 3 lobes, superior, middle, inferior, and the left lung has 2 lobes, superior and inferior. The final stop on the tour is the pleura. This is a serous membrane that surrounds the lungs and lines the thoracic cavity. The pleura reduces the friction that occurs during ventilation, helps to create a pressure gradient for lung expansion during inhalation, and prevents infections from spreading through the respiratory system. The visceral pleura surrounds the lungs. The parietal pleura lines the thoracic cavity. The space between the visceral pleura and the parietal pleura is called the pleural cavity. The pleural cavity contains a small amount of serous fluid.